Are you sure this is the right place? It's right there. Have you ever seen one that big before? No. I thought these things were extinct. Peter, by definition, all ghosts are extinct. Well, what are we going to do? There's only one thing we can do. We're going to have to cross the streams. Wait a minute, Egon, you said crossing the streams was bad. We have no choice. It's too big to fit in the trap. 3, 2, 1, get her. Well, looks like we got her. What's that stuff over there? That's endoplasmic material left over from the ghost. Well, there's always room for Jell-O. Yeah. Hello everyone and welcome to Victoria's Cantina. Today we're having a look at the Mattel 30th anniversary Ghostbusters Egon Spengler and Peter Venkman 6-inch figures. Alright you guys, so I have had this in my closet for a year and I'm barely getting around to reviewing it. And I'm super excited to review it for you guys because I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. Ever since I was a little kid, I loved the Ghostbusters. Had quite a few of the toys, including the Ecto one, and even some of the role-play items like the Proton Pack and the glow-in-the-dark trap, things like that. Kenner made a lot of cool things back then that you just don't see anymore with toy companies. So this 30th anniversary 2-pack was available on MattyCollector.com, which is Mattel's collector-oriented website where they sell action figures, toys, and all other sorts of collectibles like prop replicas. Surprisingly, these are actually still in stock on MattyCollector.com, so if you do like this review, you can go back and get them still. There's the Egon Spengler and Peter Venkman 2-pack that we're looking at right here, and then there's also the Winston Zedmore and Ray Stantz 2-pack that we will look at in our next review. As you can see from the box, it's a simple cardboard box, but it's nice that they put 30th anniversary Ghostbusters on it, and it says Egon and Peter, Adult Collector, and Mattel. The back of the box gives us all the usual information that you might find. 2014 Mattel, that was the year that these were released. It says contents 2 figures and accessories, Ghostbusters, MattyCollector.com, consumer information, and your UPC. And how glorious is that packaging? I think this is some of the finest packaging that I have seen a toy company do in recent years. On the bottom flanking both of the Ghostbusters are the Terror Dogs. You get the very cool 30th anniversary logo. I really love how they incorporated the Ghost logo into the 30. You get Egon Spengler with removable Proton Pack and Peter Venkman with removable Proton Pack. You also get the 2 ghost stands that you can see there in the packaging, and you can see that both of the Ghostbusters are zapping a ghost, which is so cool. I don't oftentimes keep the boxes on action figures that I buy, but in some instances like this where the packaging is just phenomenal, I will certainly be keeping it. On one side it says includes Proton Stream, has a ghost holding up that information, and then you see the other half of the Terror Dog. The other side has another ghost with a sign that says removable Proton Packs, which is a new feature to these 2 sets, and then you see the other half of the Terror Dog below. At the back, you get a really cool little scene there that looks like a messy Ghostbusters desk. It says, who you gonna call? 30th anniversary Ghostbusters. Give you a closer look. It says personnel file. Then we have one for Egon Spengler, profession, Doctor of Parapsychology, Doctor of Physics. Shows you a little photograph of him, and then on the bottom, debrief, neutronization of Gozer the Gozerian. It says, Egon Spengler proved to be a formidable asset in identifying and eventually destroying the malevolent entity Gozer the Gozerian, aka Gozer the Destructor. Spengler's astute summations of Gozer's many malignant forms led to eventual destruction of the aforementioned Gozerian and the rescue of Louis Tully and Dana Barrett. And then for quotable quotes, it says, try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light, which of course is something he mentioned in the film. Now, looking at Peter Venkman, get a nice image of him there. His profession is Doctor of Parapsychology. He has a PhD in psychology. And the debrief says, neutronization of Gozer the Gozerian. While New York faced imminent peril at the hands of the hyperdimensional Sumerian entity, Gozer the Gozerian, Dr. Peter Venkman served as a rallying force for his fellow Ghostbusters. While stairs and underground parking were not his strong suit, Venkman kept the team focused on saving the world from apocalyptic destruction with his ever wry observations. And for the quotable quotes, it says, "I'm fuzzy on the whole good bad thing. What do you mean, bad?" And then there's a little note there, "Remember to clean desk," which is quite funny because as you can see, the desk has just got all sorts of stuff on it. There's a phone, a calculator, crumpled up pieces of paper, paper clips, coffee mug. Just love this. This is awesome. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get both of these guys out of the box. I'm really excited because these are the first of Mattel's Ghostbusters figures that I had purchased, and I'm really anxious to see what they're like out of the packaging. All right, you guys, and now we have both Egon and Peter out of the box. As a kid, for whatever reason, Egon was always my favorite Ghostbuster. I really don't know why. He was the especially nerdy, scientific one. Peter's great. As an adult, I think, how can you not love Peter? And the figures themselves look really good. Their arms kind of are a little bit spread out. I'm assuming that's probably because of the straps of the Proton Packs, which again are removable, and we will be taking them off in just a little bit. But looking at the figures themselves, they have a very nice physique about them. They look pretty natural for the most part. The coloring on the outfits is really good. It's basically like a light grayish beige sort of color. You get some glossier black elements like the gloves and boots. The Proton Packs are very nicely detailed and quite colorful. There's a fair amount of articulation, which is pretty consistent with other 6-inch Mattel figures such as the DC Universe Classics, as well as the Dark Knight trilogy figures and the recent Batman vs. Superman figures. I'm going to give you a close-up here of Egon, and you can see he has his little glasses on, and they're pretty good. I think they're a little bit blurry. You can't really see his eyes all that well, and they're a little crooked too, but they seem to be permanently affixed here to his head, so they're not going to come off. You can kind of maybe move him a little bit and see his eyes under there. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good likeness to Harold Ramis. And I think it's a really nice looking figure. Not 100% perfect perhaps, but, very good. The facial expression, I think, is very much like the character. And, that's quite cool. His hair is a little bit poofy. And just overall, it's a really nice looking figure. Skin tone. It's not too pale. It almost looks like they even tried to give him a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow, but it's a very subtle sort of thing, but I like it. His costume says Spengler, and just by and large, very nice jumpsuit. The belt looks really nice. It looks almost a little bit metallic the way that they painted it, though that kind of almost looks like just white with some metallic bolts. Looks really cool either way. Nice detail here along the belt, and I just think it looks great. He's got some elbow pads here on his elbows, and then a really nice little Ghostbusters logo there on his right bicep, and just by and large, it looks very nice. The legs look quite good. Boots, a little bit shiny, but, still quite nice. You get peg holes underneath his feet. Now, as for the Proton Packs, Mattel did a really nice job with these. The sculptwork on them is just fabulous, and the paint detail is very nice. By and large, they are black, but you're going to see some very colorful details added to them, and you even see that there are a few scuffs to kind of give it a little bit of a more metallic look. There's a little bit of like silver scuffing here and there along the Proton Packs. Now, I do have the Neutrino Wand connected to the Proton Pack. You'll see that there is a little slot right there, and then you're going to just tab it right there onto the pack, which, very, very nice. The Neutrino Wand itself, I think, just looks really, really good. Lots of nice sculpted detail. Again, some extra paint just to give it a little bit more of a metallic look, and it's a little bit bendy. In the packaging, it was kind of in a position where it got a little bit bent, but, I'm sure with some hot water, you can probably fix it a little bit, but it does look great. Now to remove the Proton Pack from Egon, what you want to do is get the arm flexed just right. So you're going to bring back the shoulder all the way back, and then you're going to want to rotate his elbow so that you can slide the Proton Pack off. If you get it angled just right, it's really not too hard, but if you don't, it is a little bit difficult. And here's the pack off of his body, and it just looks really good. You see that you get some green straps right there for it to plug onto his shoulders. Those look quite good. There's less detail here on the inside of the pack, but it doesn't really need to be that fancy since you're not really going to see that. Now I'll give you a look here at Peter, and you can see they did a really nice job making this look like Bill Murray. Yeah, it's a bit of a caricature. It does look a little bit exaggerated, but by and large, it's very nice. The eyes are very nicely painted. Just the smirk on his face, very much looks like that wisecracking, dry-humored guy we know from the film, and just awesome. And the hair looks really good. There's a little bit of a line you can see there on his cheek, but it still looks great. The skin tone is pretty nicely done. There's a little bit of extra color on his lips. The costume says Venkman, and it's pretty much the same body that we got with Egon. The only difference here is going to be the fact that he doesn't have the full boots, which is accurate to the film because in Ghostbusters, Peter had his slacks untucked the entire time he was wearing his costume. So that's very nice that they got that accurate. Mattel could have easily cheaped out and, just given us the same legs from the Egon figure. But the fact that they didn't means that they were paying attention, and that's very important. I also really like this hose that's right here. It's connected from his hip to the back of his belt. I'm not really sure what that's for, but it is translucent, and the color looks very nice. It looks like something you would see in a laboratory, which I'm really fond of, little details like that. And here are both of our heroes without their proton packs on. And I gotta say, I really love having the option of having these guys displayed without the proton packs because, let's face it, in the films, most of the time they weren't wearing them unless they were in combat with ghosts. And the aesthetic of them without the packs is really nicely done. From the back, they look very nice. You're probably gonna display these guys wearing the packs because that's the cool way to do it. But, at least having that option makes me pretty happy. Now, in terms of articulation, it's exactly the same on both of the figures, except for one thing, which I will show you in just a bit. But you do get a ball joint at the head, and it gets a pretty okay range of movement going up and down, side to side. His shoulders are hinged, and you can bend and swivel them, though they don't go up like a whole lot, and they are a little bit restricted by the shoulder. And I mean, that kind of makes sense because they wanted to make sure the proton packs were going to fit. So, I get that. The same thing is true about the elbows. You're going to see that the elbow pad does restrict the arm's ability to go out. So you can't really get the arm straight. It's not going to go out more than that, but, at least you can flex it a little bit. I would have preferred if you could do it all the way, but it is what it is. You get bends and swivels at both of the wrists. You get a swivel at the waist. You also get the typical Mattel articulation at the hips, in which they articulate it so that you can move the leg forward and backward, but then there's a separate joint so that you can have it do the split, which is, pretty cool. You get swivels at both of the thighs. You're going to get your bends at the knees, and then you get rotations at the top of the boots and bends at both of the ankles. The difference with Peter, of course, is that he does not have the full-on boots, so there is no rotation at the lower leg, but you can move his foot up and down, though it is a little bit restricted because of the pant leg. So one of the especially cool things about this set is that you do get the Proton Streams with both of these figures. Previous Mattel releases for the Ghostbusters line, there were only a couple of figures that had these, so it's really nice to be able to get this pack and the other pack with Winston and Ray and, have all 4 Ghostbusters with their own streams. And it's a really nice looking stream. You can see that it's translucent. It's basically like an orangey sort of color. Then it has like a really light blue electricity color. It looks like it did in the film, which is quite nice. It's kind of jagged and erratic looking. There's a little peg here at the bottom, and you're going to find that there's another piece included right here, which is quite similar in design. You will see that there is a hole right there. So you're going to take the longer proton stream, and where the peg's at, you're just going to put it into the hole and just line it up like that. So now we can take Egon and his Neutrino Wand, and you're going to see that there is a socket right there, and then you're basically just going to line it up. There's a cutout here where the socket's at. Just line that up with the Neutrino Wand so that it doesn't hit this little red part right there, and there you go. Now just look at how awesome these guys look with their proton streams plugged into their neutrino wands and just blasting away at the ghosts. This looks freaking amazing. Without a doubt, these are some of the coolest action figures that I have in my collection, and they're not the fanciest figures either, but they do a very nice job at just being simple action figures that very nicely replicate the looks of these characters and giving them nice accessories that just work really well. Now, as a toy reviewer, I would not be doing my civic duty if I didn't let you know that while I was trying to position Peter's wrist in order to hold the proton pack, actually what happened was that it was just really stiff. I couldn't rotate it, so I started running it under hot water and, to loosen it up. I've had this issue with other figures before, and before I knew it, the wrist just kind of fell out like that. You can see that the peg is still stuck inside of the wrist, and now I have his hand just kind of like that, poor Peter. I suppose I can super glue it and just position it so that he's, always going to be able to hold on to the Neutrino Wand in this position. It kind of sucks that I have to do that. And Matty Collector does still have them in stock on their website, so I'm kind of thinking about maybe contacting them and seeing if they'll do a replacement for me. But at the same time, I did buy this a long time ago, so I'm not so sure what they'll do. But hey, it doesn't hurt to try, right? I'll keep you guys updated with what happens with that. But yeah, that's really a huge bummer. I'm going to have to do something if I want to keep this figure looking great. It's just, we can't have that. So I'll certainly have to glue it, with his hand, like in that position. That way I can always plug in the Neutrino Wand into his hand whenever I want. Now to sweeten the deal even further, they also include these glow-in-the-dark display bases, which are basically just the Ghost logo. Now, I'm not sure why they didn't do the red around it. I mean, I'm sure it was a lot cheaper just to do this and, add a little bit of black paint on it for the facial details. But it's still really cool. I'm a huge sucker for glow-in-the-dark stuff, and I'm really happy that they included both of these stands to put my Ghostbusters on. Now, they do seem to stand fine without any kind of display base, but, we'll go ahead and put it in there. And it actually doesn't seat in all the way. You can see the foot is kind of floating. So it might actually be better to pose them without the stand, but, we have the stand anyway. So yeah, not the best application. It's just that the peg hole is a little bit too shallow. Seems like it might work a little bit better on that foot, kind of, sort of. And yeah, it's better just not to use these bases at all. I mean, you can kind of use them for something like that, but I don't know. They're cool. It's just these figures don't really need to have them. They're just extras, and it's really nice to have extras even if you don't end up having to use them. And here's the stand glowing in the dark, and as you can see, it does look pretty decent. And finally, I will also note that it is a little bit hard to get them to hold the Neutrino Wands in the perfect position. Just because of the way that they're constructed, you don't get 100% of a bend at either of the elbows, and there is some restriction with the shoulders as well. And then, of course, the issue I had with Peter's wrist just breaking off. You really have to kind of finagle it a little bit in order to get it in a very nice looking position. I think this looks pretty good right here, but ideally his hand would be a little bit higher up on the handle right there. But it's just hard to get it 100% due to how the articulation is on their arms. But, I think like that, it'll suffice. And it does look really cool. Though I do think it would have been cool if I would have been able to have positioned it so that he could hold it in the forward position. But that simply isn't the case with these. And ultimately, I guess I'm okay with it. It would have been nice, but it's not really necessary in order to accomplish a very good-looking pose with these figures. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. These are the Mattel 30th Anniversary Ghostbusters 2-pack featuring Egon Spengler and Peter Venkman 6-inch figures. All in all, you guys, I am extremely happy with these figures. First of all, Ghostbusters is a 30-year-old film, so the fact that a major company like Mattel decided to pick them up and make figures of them is just really cool to me. Not only that, but their execution is just excellent. The figures' aesthetics are great, very nice sculpts. They look quite a bit like the actors, and the outfits look very much as they did in the films. The Proton Packs are very nicely accomplished, very nice detail. The Proton Streams look great, very much like they did in the film. I just really like the aesthetic of them. And all the little details on their costumes I think are super cool. When you consider that this pack sells for $50, you're really paying about $25 per figure, which isn't a bad deal at all. They're both 6-inch figures. They both look great, and they have some very nice accessories. So I think it's a pretty good deal. Now, I would be lying if I didn't say I wasn't disappointed about Peter's hand falling off. I just think that is a little bit unacceptable. It shouldn't have been that stiff from the factory. Ultimately, that's probably just a mishap and not something that would be typical with these figures. But that aside, you guys, if you like Ghostbusters, I highly recommend these to you, especially if you haven't picked up the individually released versions of these characters that were released a few years back, because if you buy them individually on Amazon or eBay, they are going to cost you an arm and a leg. Getting them in this 2-pack is a great way to do it, and the fact that these ones have the removable Proton Packs is very cool because previous releases do not have them. Most previous releases didn't have the Proton Streams. You're really getting some very well-rounded sets with these. Now, the display bases really aren't that useful here, which luckily the figures stand just fine without them, so it's not that big of a deal. On a scale between 1 and 10, I think I'm going to give these guys a 9. I would give them a perfect 10 if Peter's hands didn't fall off, but it did. so it does hinder my score. And truthfully, the articulation in the arms could have been a little bit better. Other than those 2 issues, though, I think these are super solid, and I highly recommend that you add these to your collection if you like Ghostbusters, because who are you gonna call? Alright, my friends, if you enjoyed this video, then I do encourage you to please like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments what you think about Egon and Peter and whether or not you're planning on picking these up. Be sure and follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and stay tuned because there is more Ghostbusters on the way. Until next time, my friends, bye-bye.